What happens when tons of rocks and mud suddenly break loose from a mountainside, wiping out everything in their path? How can ordinary rains turn a picturesque landscape into a disaster zone in just a few minutes? Sometimes the answer to these questions is captured on camera, and I want to share with you one such moment, frozen in time and space. Let's mentally transport ourselves to China, to the prefecture-level city of Hangzhou, sprawling on the banks of the Han River. Like many regions in East Asia, this area is prone to sudden and heavy downpours, often followed by devastating, catastrophic landslides. One such blow from nature occurred on September 18, 2021. This was preceded by several days of incessant rain, which literally saturated the ground with water to the brim. The soil beneath one of the nearby mountains turned into a heavy, unstable mass. The upper part of the slope, weighed down by moisture, could not withstand its own weight, began to slowly shift, and then uncontrollably collapse downward. Fortunately, or perhaps terrifyingly, several local residents were nearby with their phones in hand, and were able to document this frightening spectacle. The footage shows how a huge mass of earth, trees, and rocks breaks away from the main body of the mountain, and rushes downward with a roar, raising a thick cloud of dust. It resembles a giant wave, but made not of water, but of solid matter, sweeping away all obstacles. When the dust settled, the landscape was changed beyond recognition. Where there was once a green slope, now there gaped a huge wound in the earth. According to local authorities, National Highway 210 and the river at the foot of the mountain were completely blocked by debris and mud, the volume of which is hard to even imagine, likely amounting to thousands of cubic feet of material. One person sustained serious injuries to their legs and ribs, while another was buried alive under the rubble. Fortunately, rescuers managed to extract both victims and transport them to the hospital. The extent of the damage and the time required for cleanup remain unclear, but these images serve as a powerful reminder of the untamed force of nature, especially when provoked by prolonged rains. An explosion that went completely off-plan. Now our journey takes us to Mostar, the fifth largest city in the country of Bosnia and Herzegovina. About 113,000 people live here. Their homes are situated along the picturesque Neretva River. On April 6, 2024, the usual hum of the city was shattered by a deafening crash. The source of the sound was a nearby quarry where the mining company HP Investing was conducting scheduled blasting operations. It was supposed to be a controlled explosion, a routine procedure for extracting rock. However, something went wrong. Completely unintentionally, the company's actions triggered not just a collapse in the quarry, but a gigantic uncontrolled landslide. In the video shot by eyewitnesses from a safe distance, you can see a massive amount of rock breaking away from the slope and rushing down like an avalanche, directly towards the river. The sight is both mesmerizing and terrifying. If you look closely at the footage, at the foot of the mountain, you can make out a line of parked cars. From above, they look no bigger than ants. All this equipment, these tiny dots in the landscape, were either crushed by the multi-ton mass of rocks or simply swept into the river like toys. Amazingly, according to official reports, only 2 people were injured during this chaos, with non-life-threatening injuries. However, the main concern of experts was not so much about the people, but about the environment. Ecologists and wildlife specialists expressed serious concern about the condition of local animals, and especially the fish stocks in the Neretva. The fact is that the rock debris completely blocked the riverbed, creating an artificial dam. And although trucks and heavy machinery can eventually remove the physical barriers, the fragile river ecosystem may never return to its former state. This incident became a bitter lesson. It seems that the cause of the disaster was indeed the improper execution of blasting operations by the company HP Investing, once again demonstrating how human activity can lead to unpredictable and destructive consequences for nature. The deadly thirst for jade. Now I will tell you a story that will make your blood run cold. A story about a deadly trap born from the allure of precious stones and desperate poverty. We are heading to Myanmar, a country that supplies the world with 70, if not 90% of the entire global jade supply. This stone is highly valued, especially in neighboring China, and the mining industry generates tens of billions of dollars annually. But the lion's share of these fabulous sums ends up in the pockets of large corporations that control the mines. When the official mining operations conclude and the machinery leaves, they step onto the scene the illegal jade scavengers. These are mostly young impoverished men, risking their lives in hopes of finding any fragment in the rock dumps that they can sell. Their work is deadly dangerous and brings new tragedies every year. But none of them compare in scale to the disaster at the Bekan jade mine that occurred in 2020. On that fateful day, more than 200 of these desperate seekers were buried alive under a giant mass of rocks, mud, and mining waste. Incredibly, those who were fortunate enough to escape this fate managed to capture the chilling moments on their phones. A day before the tragedy, local authorities warned of the danger of conducting any work due to the heavy rains that had occurred in the region. But hundreds of gatherers ignored this warning. Perhaps they hoped that the bad weather would scare off competitors and they would have a better chance of finding something valuable. Unfortunately, too many people had the same thought. They were at the very base of a huge waste rock dump when it suddenly collapsed. A 20-foot wall of mud, water, and stones rushed down, sweeping away everything in its path. Many were knocked off their feet and instantly engulfed by this terrifying torrent. They were never seen again. Even more frightening is the realization that even this terrible disaster did not stop the survivors. Just a few days later, they returned to similar dangerous areas, continuing their search. Some even brought their children along, knowing that the slope could collapse at any moment. This is a terrifying testament to what extreme need drives people to do, forcing them to face death every day for the faint hope of luck. The road vanished into the abyss. The mountains of India are majestic and beautiful, but their beauty conceals a constant threat. Places like the state of Himachal Pradesh are particularly prone to landslides. The reason lies deep underground. This region is located above the collision zone of the Indian and Eurasian tectonic plates. It was their interaction that once gave rise to the highest mountains, the Himalayas, and this process continues to this day. The constant friction of the plates causes earthquakes and triggers destructive landslides. On July 30th, 2021, one of such landslides struck the Sirmaur district in Himachal Pradesh. The local residents, who became involuntary witnesses, could only watch in horror as a huge part of the mountain, along with the road built on it, literally vanished, sliding down several hundred feet into the valley. The video recording of this event is striking in its inevitability. At first, small landslides appear, then the slope begins to slowly move, and then an entire mass of earth and rocks, carrying the asphalt surface, rushes downward with increasing speed, raising clouds of dust. The road, which just a second ago seemed quite reliable, simply disappears, as if it were erased from the face of the earth. Fortunately, at the moment of the collapse, there was not a single car. Apparently, the local residents, who noticed early signs of the impending disaster, perhaps cracks or small ground shifts, managed to stop traffic from both sides. This incident is a vivid reminder of how dynamic and dangerous mountain landscapes can be, especially in seismically active areas, where the ground beneath your feet can move at any moment with catastrophic consequences. This is the price of living in the shadow of the Great Himalayas. The true power of nature. Natural disasters have a terrifying ability to erase the traces of our presence on the planet, turning familiar landscapes and human creations into ruins in a matter of moments. I want to show you the consequences of such an untamable force, captured in Japan. Let's move to August 2004, National Highway 168, an important transport artery near Osaka, connecting the city of Shinga in the south and Hirokata in the north, suddenly ceased to exist in one of its sections. The cause was a giant landslide triggered by a series of powerful typhoons that hit the country. This was not a complete surprise for the authorities. Since January of that same year, specialists had been monitoring the increasing instability in this area. They noticed subsidence of the ground and the appearance of cracks along the retaining wall near the village of Uto. 6 months later, torrential rains brought by 2 consecutive typhoons finally weakened the already problematic section, bringing it to a critical state. The soil was oversaturated with moisture, its structure compromised. Repair was no longer possible. All the authorities could do was to block off the dangerous zone and wait for the inevitable. And it happened. In the footage, you can see how a huge segment of the mountain, including the road running along the slope, starts to move. A mass of earth and rocks and trees slowly, but inevitably slides down, like a living creature, consuming everything in its path. The highway literally dissolves. In this chaos, the scale of destruction is colossal. After the main movement stopped, a helicopter flew over the disaster site to assess the damage from the air. The scene, revealed from above, was truly shocking. Where a busy road once lay, they now gaped a huge scar on the mountain's body, covered with tons of debris. Fortunately, thanks to timely precautionary measures and the road closure, no one was injured during this massive landslide. That year, 2004, turned out to be especially difficult for Japan due to an abnormally large number of typhoons, which brought floods and landslides across the archipelago, constantly testing the resilience of infrastructure and the nerves of the residents. The mouth of hell opens. There are places on Earth where nature itself seems to warn of danger with its names. One of them is Hell's Mouth. This translates to Mouth of Hell. It is an astonishingly beautiful bay on the northern coast of Cornwall in the United Kingdom, part of the picturesque Northern Cliffs, offering view of the Celtic Sea. But on September 23, 2000, on the 11th, this beauty turned into a frightening spectacle. Several tourists walking along the edge of the cliff noticed how small stones and pieces of rock began to crumble down the slope and fall into the water far below. This is a common occurrence in such places, the result constant weathering. But that day, they had no idea that they were destined to witness and capture on camera something much more significant, which one well-known geologist would later call the best video recording of a rockfall he had ever seen. In the video, you can hear exclamations of surprise and alarm. At first, small fragments fall, then a larger piece breaks off from the cliff, and soon a gigantic mass of rock the size of several multi-story buildings, with a deafening roar, detaches from the main rock and crashes into the sea. The fall causes a massive splash, sending up a cloud of spray and dust. The spectacle is both majestic and terrifying. According to estimates by the British Geological Survey, about 100,000 tons of rock, a weight comparable to that of an entire fleet of warships, collapsed into the sea at that moment. The base of the cliff in this area is composed of argillites, sandstones, siltstones, and shale. These rocks weather over time due to the complex interaction of regional faults and local fracturing. The rock mass breaks into blocks and gradually loses stability. These tourists were just lucky to be in the right place at the right time with a camera in hand to give the world these unique and breathtaking images of nature's untamed power. A hero without a cape. A feat on a mountain road. Sometimes heroism is born not on battlefields, but on a dusty mountain road, and it is shown not in loud feats, but in the quiet determination of one person. This story is about such a case that happened in the Chinese district of Jiaotong, which is in Yunnan province. On August 5, 2018. Imagine an ordinary day. A man named Yang is driving his car on a winding, cobblestone-paved road, winding along the mountainside. The scenery around is probably picturesque, but Yang's attention is drawn to something else, a concerning, small depression in the road surface ahead. An experienced eye or intuition tells him, this is not just a bump, it's a dire warning of an impending landslide. Realizing the deadly danger, Yang immediately stops his car. But he doesn't turn around to save himself. He gets out of the car and decisively blocks the path of other drivers trying to go further. You can imagine their initial reaction: irritation, confusion, maybe even anger. Who is this person who thinks he's a traffic controller? But their displeasure didn't last long. Just a few moments later, the mountainside came alive. With a terrifying roar, a massive amount of earth and rocks broke loose and crashed down, completely destroying the very section of the road that Yan had prudently blocked. The irritation on the faces of the other drivers turned to shock, and then to immense gratitude. If it weren't for Yang's quick reaction and selflessness, more than 20 people could have found themselves at the epicenter of this landslide, where many others would likely have preferred to just drive away. To save their own lives, he stayed to protect strangers from certain death. This story is a vivid testament to the well-known truth: not all heroes wear capes. Sometimes a hero is an ordinary driver on a mountain road, whose sharp eye and brave heart saved dozens of lives. A toxic avalanche in the quarry. Industrial disasters in the mountains pose a double threat: not only physical destruction but also potential environmental contamination. Now I will tell you about an incident at the Kopla gold mine, located in the Turkish province of Erzincan. This mine, owned by the company, Gold Mining, already had not the most spotless reputation. In 2020, its operations were suspended after investigators discovered a cyanide leak, a deadly substance used in gold mining, into a river that flows through Turkey, Syria, and Iraq. The mine was reopened 2 years later, after cleanup operations and the company paying a substantial fine. But on February 13, 2024, a new, even more terrible disaster occurred. A giant mass of material known as heap leach piles, this rock treated with chemicals to extract gold, suddenly lost stability. Footage shows the gray mass rushing forward, engulfing everything in its path. But there is another video, filmed from the very heart of the impending disaster. A dash cam from one of the trucks captured the moment when this toxic avalanche crests over the hill and rushes directly at it, filling the road. The driver desperately tries to reverse and miraculously manages to avoid a collision. The flow stops just a few feet from the cabin. Unfortunately, not everyone was so lucky. 9 workers were trapped inside the mine during the collapse. In the wake of the tragedy, several mine officials were arrested. It seems there were concerns or direct indications of the possibility of such an incident, but the necessary precautions were not taken. This disaster is another grim reminder of the risks associated with mineral extraction and the price that sometimes has to be paid for gold. A deadly turn, a fatal rock slide. Roads carved into the cliffs allure with their beauty, offering travelers breathtaking views. But this beauty is deceptive and harbors deadly danger. I will show you now footage from Aksu Prefecture, located in China's Xinjiang province, a region with predominantly mountainous terrain. Here, many roads are narrow, strips of asphalt winding along steep slopes. On July 4, 2023, a local resident was making a routine trip along one of these roads. His dashcam was impartially recording the journey, but suddenly became a witness to an event that makes your hair stand on end. The video shows the car smoothly entering another turn of the mountain switchback. The scenery is magnificent, but at the top of the screen, there's a flicker of movement. It's rocks. Small at first, but then getting larger, they start rolling down the slope right above the road. The driver reacts instantly, instinctively hitting the brakes, and this saves his life. Just a moment later, a real rock slide crashes onto the road in front of him, a few more feet forward, and the car would have been under this deadly hail. In a matter of seconds, the entire passage is completely blocked by a chaotic pile of rocks. The impact of such a boulder would have left him with no chance. This incident is a chilling reminder that on such scenic but treacherous roads, danger can lurk around every corner. If it weren't for the dashcam, it's unlikely anyone would believe how close this person came to the edge of the abyss, how thin the line was between life and death that day. The slow death of the road under the onslaught of water. Not always do mountain landslides happen instantly, like an explosion. Sometimes, destruction creeps up unnoticed, slowly undermining the support until everything collapses all at once. It is this kind of process, stretched over time, but no less destructive, that was captured in the Peruvian province of Recuay. Let's move to a small town in this province. March 23, 2018. Year. The local residents noticed something unusual. Under the main road, a vital artery connecting them to the outside world, a steady stream of water began to seep and flow. Perhaps it was the result of rains or melting snow in the mountains. At first, it might have seemed insignificant, but water is a tireless destroyer. The flow gradually began to erode the soil beneath the road surface, weakening its foundation. This triggered a chain reaction. One after another, small landslides began to occur. Chunks of earth broke off and fell, taking parts of the supporting structure with them. In the video recorded by eyewitnesses, you can see how this process is gaining momentum. A huge chunk of the hillside on which the road was held, literally, disappears before your eyes. Cracks in the asphalt widen, edges collapse. According to the description of the original video, the entire collapse process of more than 100 feet of road took about 13 minutes. A small stream in a short time accomplished what others could not. have been able to do. The consequences were serious. The town's residents were practically cut off from the world, and they had to rely on a narrow, inconvenient path while road services work on restoring the connection. According to the available information, the authorities decided not just to fill the huge gully, but to build on a bridge at this location, a more reliable solution given such unstable geology. This story clearly demonstrates that the destructive power of nature can manifest not only in sudden cataclysms but also in slow, relentless processes that undermine our existence. The trembling of the earth and the wrath of the mountains in Taiwan. Strong earthquakes are in themselves a terrifying phenomenon, bringing destruction and fear. But their danger does not end with the initial tremors. In mountainous regions, they almost always trigger a chain reaction, numerous landslides and rockfalls, which can be no less deadly. In the spring of 2024, the world anxiously followed the news from Taiwan, which became the epicenter of the most powerful earthquake in recent decades. While rescuers were clearing the debris in the cities, in the mountains, a drama of its own was unfolding. The shaking of the Earth's crust disrupted the fragile balance of mountain slopes across the island. Eyewitnesses captured shocking footage. Entire mountain slopes were set in motion, collapsing downward with gigantic masses of rock. The air was filled with rumbling and dust. Huge clouds of dust, raised by these landslides, covered the sky, turning a clear day into twilight. Some footage from areas near the coast shows how these dust clouds, resembling ominous mushrooms after an explosion, quickly spread, covering not only the land but also the sea surface. The spectacle is truly apocalyptic, evoking thoughts of the end of the world, of the planet's own wrath. The earth trembled, and the mountains responded with avalanches of rocks and soil. Roads instantly turned into impassable blockages, cutting off entire settlements. Each new landslide created a terrifying and chaotic picture of destruction, demonstrating the secondary, yet no less formidable force of the earthquake. It was a vivid demonstration of how one natural disaster can give rise to many others, multiplying the danger and scale of the tragedy. Taiwan bravely coped with the aftermath, but these images will forever remain a testament to the colossal energy that lies dormant within the depths of our planet, and is capable of changing the face of mountains in an instant.